You're listening to the Soulless Minions of Orthodoxy alternative DVD commentaries. Our movie for today is Steel Magnolias. My name is Josh, and sitting with me once again is Justin.
Hello.
And we have a guest in our studios, so to speak. Go ahead and say hello, Susan.
Hello.
She is, I guess you could say, an aficionado on this movie. Is Justin
Uber fan?
Uber fan, that's good. As Justin is an aficionado with Superman, but we all know this movie pretty well. It's a favorite to the female audience, I guess you could say, but I believe it has its male fans as well, and we are two of them. But we love this movie, and we're gonna take a fond look at it today. So hopefully we'll point out some things and make it enjoyable for you. Anything else you guys like to say before we get started and we set up our sync point?
No, I'm ready to go.
I'm ready to go as well.
Okay, our sync point for today is the black point immediately after the TriStar logo has faded to black. And those of you in North America, that's about 20 seconds in. But yeah, so go ahead and sync that up. Pause this track if you need to, but we're going to get started. I'm going to give you a countdown, and when you hear me say on pause, we'll unpause, and you'll unpause, and that way we'll be in sync, okay? All right, here comes the countdown. 3, 2, 1, unpause. TriStar Pictures presents a Rastar production. All right, Susan, since you are our guest here today, why don't you start us off?
This is originally was a play written by Robert Harley. As most of you know, this is a true story. A semi-true story based on his sister's life.
Death.
And death. Her name was not Shelby. Her name was Susan. And unlike the movie in which she dies after having given birth to her son, Susan actually passed away during childbirth. So this is based on a real event, but has been altered for entertainment purposes, I would say.
Dramatic purposes. Well, since you mentioned that it was originally a play, I had actually assumed that before I even looked it up and got confirmation on that. The movie just reeks of being a stage play in the best way. I mean, first of all, it's an extremely dialogue-driven movie, which is great, rare treat these days. But one of the big telltale signs that it's or at least was originally written for the stage, is that it takes place largely in a small handful of sets. And those sets tend to be rooms or a house, something like that. You don't see a lot of driving in cars, for example. You don't see too many outdoor scenes at a park, even though a couple scenes do, but they're very small. It was just one of those visual clues that I had when I rewatched the movie many times, and I started to pick up the idea that, hey, this is the dialogue's pretty sharp. Usually that happens with a play. They tend to refine it and get it really perfect. And the staging elements that I mentioned, I just had a feeling it was a play, and of course there it is right now, based on his play.
Well, I was going to mention something
just one of those things.
Similar. While rewatching this setup here, in the exposition, we're introduced to two of the places in the movie where most of the activity takes place. We're introduced to the main household, run by Sally Field, and the beauty parlor.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the activity in the movie takes place in those two locations.
Yeah, you're right. Either at Truvy's or at the Eatonton house.
That's right. And right here we're being introduced to Daryl Hannah, and I found it interesting. like I've said before, you get analytical when you're preparing for a commentary. And I was thinking about this, and this movie is, well, all the characters here in this setup are being introduced through a side character, through one of the supporting characters, through the eyes of Daryl Hannah as she's arriving in town. And we're being introduced sort of through her. We're being introduced to some of the characters here in this opening through her eyes.
Truvy anyway, but not the Eatonsons. They're on their own here.
Yes, that's what I meant. That's why I said sort of. So it doesn't feel too much like exposition, and I really like that. I hadn't thought about it before, but
she does definitely take us through the wedding, though.
Yes, that's
she's the sci-fi fans will get this. She's the C-3PO and R2-D2 of this movie.
That's a good way. That's a very good way to put it. Yeah.
She's the audience in a lot of ways. She kind of introduces us, and it's not so much that we see it through her eyes, but her arrival requires certain amounts of explanation or exposition that the characters wouldn't have otherwise spoken about.
Yeah, it avoids as you know scenes.
Exactly.
And one of the things that I liked is that even though I know this is exposition, it doesn't feel that way. It never did, and it particularly didn't earlier today when I was taking a look at it again. It just feels like this is just any old regular day, and we're just dropping in on these people, and it doesn't feel like we're being force-fed information. And I thought that was
it doesn't.
I thought that was a really great quality, done in the way of, like you said, C-3PO, R2-D2, this supporting character, bringing us into this world, so we don't feel like we're being force-fed.
The sci-fi author Orson Scott Card spoke about exposition and how most writers have a habit of doing it badly. And basically his rule of thumb is when you have especially in the first 20 minutes of a movie like this where all the characters are being introduced, a sign of bad writing is when you have these characters saying, as like you were saying, something like that. But when in reality, these characters are not going to say that. They're going to speak as though the other person that they're talking to knows exactly what they're talking about. And writers have the tendency to think that the audience won't get it. But if the writing is at least moderately good, usually the audience will pick it up. And, you're right. This opening 20 minutes doesn't feel forced. It feels natural. It feels like we're just taping another day in the lives of these people, and we're not having anything spoon-fed to us. They are talking just as they would later in the movie without the as you know sort of stuff. And that lends to its credibility because we're pretty much thrown into the deep end. Again, just like Star Wars, we're not given any sort of intro into the wedding itself, the meeting of Shelby and Jackson and all that. We're just thrown in head first, and we just pick up little bits of information as we go, which makes it far more interesting. You really feel like you're a fly on the wall.
Oh, that's a good way to put it, fly on the wall. That's a good metaphor to use. Well, but Justin and I have been rambling on, and for a little while, let's give an opportunity for our guest to speak. Susan, why don't you tell us your personal feelings about this movie? Why does it mean so much to you? What are your overall opinions of it?
That was not exactly the lead-in I was expecting, but I'll go with that. It's the language in this movie is incredible. The writer, Robert Harling, has this part of the country down so well. This is where he came from. I believe it was filmed in his hometown of Natchitoches, Louisiana, as well. Many of the people that are in this film, the extras, this Truvy's son is a local boy, local actor, and the majority of the extras are just people that live in the town, knew the actual family, knew Susan, knew her condition, were part of her life and her passing. So it has a real richness in terms of the characters and the language that he uses. To me, some of the best lines ever written for a movie are in this movie, and we frequently quote it in my family and just refer to so many of his classic lines in this story, and probably goes over most people's heads when we use them, but it's just the language is so rich, and I think that was my initial draw. The characters are so quirky and so lovable. You just, like you were saying, you just feel like you're a fly in the wall, and you're glad to be there because you're witnessing really interesting people doing really interesting things that are fairly atypical. And so it got me right from the beginning. You also can't go wrong with this cast. From beginning to end, this cast is fabulous. As we all know, this was Julia Roberts' first big movie. Sally Field really backed her for this role, and Daryl Hannah really campaigned for this role. She wasn't at first considered too heavily for it, but then she convinced them. Julia Roberts actually, they felt, was not attractive enough for the role. And Herbert Ross, the director, and Ray Stark, the producer, got together and convinced the powers that be that she really was the one that was going to be perfect for this role. And as we know, it absolutely established her. So language, characters, actors, actresses, you put it all together and you've got, I think, one of the best movies ever made. Yes, it's about a subject that can be depressing, but it's done in such a comedic way where he sees the glasses. Robert Harling, the writer, sees the glasses half full rather than half empty. So from the beginning to the end, it had me. How about you, Josh?
Well, I grew up with this movie, and I have to admit, growing up with it, being very young at first, I didn't like it. It was a girl movie, so I didn't want to like it. But as this is a good movie, it grew on me until eventually I was old enough to realize how good it was, and I was able to appreciate it and quote it as often as anybody else. And it's incredibly difficult not to quote this movie while talking about it or rewatching it as we are now. There's just so many good lines, and as you said, it's very dialogue rich. So, and all these characters are very unique. So of course they provide that for us. But I love it now, and I'm glad I do appreciate it. Being a man, and be able to say that without feeling any sense of shame or anything like that. But I'm glad to give this movie a commentary, and I hope people, others that enjoy it as we do, will enjoy this commentary as well and look back on it with us. But what about you, Justin?
Well, we covered a lot of ground there. First of all, before I forget to mention it, you said Ray Stark. No, Ray Stark was the producer. Who wrote it?
Robert Harling.
Robert Harling. And then you mentioned Ray Stark, a producer, another man. And then, of course, Herbert Ross is a man. I was surprised to find out that this was directed, and written for that matter, by men. That was a surprise to me. You would think, given this estrogen-filled movie, that it was written and directed by a woman. Yeah,
I had that same notion the other day while I was rewatching Fried Green Tomatoes. I just assumed it was a woman who had directed it, but it was a man.
Yeah, there you go.
And it just I was like, oh, okay. And it's just when you have material like that, you would think it just naturally would go to a woman, but not always. Not in that case, not in these two cases, but it's interesting.
Ray Stark actually saw the play off Broadway, fell in love with it, talked to Robert Harling, the writer, and contacted Herbert Ross, said, you have to go see this movie and talk to the writer and see how we can get it on film. So from the beginning, it was, three men that were the creative forces to this movie that's considered one of the top, quote, chick flicks.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Well, it is definitely, even among men, regarded as one of the most quotable movies of all time. I mean, you can't go more than 60 seconds without a quote. And sometimes, I mean, yes, by and large, 9 out of 10 times that it's a well-written line, but there are numerous lines in this movie that are good simply because of the delivery. Not to say that the dialogue isn't good, but the casting in this movie, like you said, was so spot on that these people delivered these lines with, you just can't imagine anyone else doing it.
In fact, having said that, Winona Ryder was actually in the running for the position that, Julia's position. Yeah.
Well, I guess I could see her, but, Shelby is Julia Roberts to me. I mean, she always will be. As far as this being a play-based, dialogue-driven film, as we're watching this, anyone who's listened to our commentaries know that, of course, we have to watch these with the subtitles on. And it's really catching my attention that there is nary a second of film here where there is not dialogue on the screen. People are constantly talking. And, again, this is a clue that this was a play first. A lot of screenplays will have direction for, close-up of character's face and a tear or whatever. But in a play, you can't do that. You have to speak so the audience, really understands what's going on and doesn't get bored. And if you'll notice, turn your subtitles on if you're watching this. They never stop. They just keep going. Okay, I'm done.
Another aside to this movie, this dog was very difficult for Shirley MacLaine to handle. She actually had some orthopedic work that had to be done because she hurt her shoulder in trying to control this dog. So it really testifies to how good her acting is, because she was acting through really struggling with this very powerful dog.
Well, that probably lent to the performance.
I'm sure it did.
Whitey Black is a moron. Yeah, 50% of the charm of this movie is the fact that it's in the South. That the South is a character in this movie, whether it be just in their dialogue or the atmosphere, that sort of thing. It's just all over the place.
Agreed.
What a great layer it adds to the movie. If this had been California, it would look and feel like Father of the Bride, and that's okay, but that just adds something to this movie that's irreplaceable.
And I really enjoyed this dynamic we have here between Weezer and Tom Skerritt. It's one of my favorite relationships in the movie. Very antagonistic, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Well, what do you say? It's a
love-hate thing.
It's the odd couple.
Sure. I mean, they just play off each other so well, and it's such a treat whenever they share a scene together. But it's reminiscent of a lot of, characters in other films or stories. What I think of mostly, because I'm a sci-fi nerd, is Deep Space Nine with Quark and Odo. How they were always at odds with each other, but you could detect under the surface an admiration for each other.
Sure.
This scene coming up, my husband and I, John, actually baked this cuppa, and it's quite delicious if you would like to try it.
I'll have to try that.
This scene in the beauty parlor is the only set in the whole movie. Everything else was on location. and this set was actually in a gymnasium in Louisiana. They had to pipe in air conditioning because they filmed during the spring and summer. Most of the time, the average temperature was 110, with, I think, humidity about as high.
Probably. That's awful.
Justin, was this before or after Splash?
Oh, this was after.
This after Splash? Okay.
Pretty sure. I think that would probably lend credence to the idea that Daryl Hannah was not, easily perceived as playing this part. She was definitely always portrayed as kind of the blonde bombshell, that sort of thing. This is, a complete departure from anything she had played before that I've seen anyway.
Well, I was just curious. I mean, Splash was her kind of entrance into Hollywood, wasn't it?
Yeah, probably so, yeah. I couldn't tell you for certain, but I know it came before this.
Okay. Little harbinger of things to come right there. See the worried look on Sally Field's face.
Yeah.
I mean,
see, this is an example of show versus tell.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, we start off, introducing this world and these characters and the setting, and everything feels, everything's nice. Everyone's in love and everyone seems happy. But slowly here, we're going to be, introduced to something that's going to bring great tragedy, and it comes up naturally. Like I said, it's not forced to us or anything like that.
Yeah, a lot of lesser writers or directors would have wanted to plant that little seed, by someone saying, oh, I've heard that people that have a child with, that are diabetic, whatever, they've died or whatever, things like that, things that are just way too obvious. And, like you said,
look at this. I mean, she's talking about the radio station, and it's not as if we're being told, oh yeah, this is going to come up later in the movie. She's going to buy it. But it just feels like this is just normal conversation they're having. And we're not directly taking it in. It's being put into our subconscious. And well,
that's because there's so much going on. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just the layering of the dialogue that is so good.
Yeah.
It's also drawing a distinction between all these ladies and the newcomer that Daryl Hannah plays, because she doesn't understand what's going on with the prospect of this young girl marrying and potentially having a child of her own. So all these women are responding to that subtle nervousness that they're feeling about what could happen to Shelby. And Daryl Hannah, later says, as I believe she's wiping up the orange juice, should I call a doctor? And that's when you realize they all are on the same page, because they all respond at the same time in the same way.
Yeah.
By the way, Dolly Parton really did that. Her hair, that was all her work. And
it's big and poofy.
Oh, it sure is. Very Southern.
I love Dolly Parton in this movie. I think she's great.
This was a breakout role for her as well.
Well, she'd been acting for many years.
Yes, but it gave her a depth of character that her other roles really had not given her.
Well, that might be true.
I thought she was really good in 9 to 5. I know you'll both agree on that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And that was before this.
Yeah, I see though how that that comes back though. She was definitely playing in 9 to 5, a Dolly Parton. I don't want to say caricature, but playing into the Dolly Parton stereotype of gorgeous, figured, blah, 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 definitely seen as that. Whereas this movie makes no attempt to play on her sexuality in any way. Truvy is not that person. So I see how it's a departure from anything she had done before. I can see that.
Well, bringing up 9 to 5 kind of reminds me of something, it's one of the qualities of this movie that make it so enjoyable, as is, 9 to 5 is it stars 3 women, and you say you're in the video store and you see that box on the shelf and you think, oh, that's it's a chick flick. But a lot of guys really love that movie too, because it's not solely about female relationships. It's about working for the man. And
oh yeah,
that's something, a universal thing that anybody can relate to. as the same with this movie, where it's not about, it's about these women, but it's about friendship, the bonds of friendship, and that can go for men or women.
I love the way that they're ratcheting up the tension in this scene, which will ultimately climax with Shelby having, a diabetic response when she and her mother start to argue. And I just love the way the tension in this scene builds up to that.
Well, like right there, that little clue.
Yes.
Some people watching it for the first time will kind of sense that something's going. Look right there. She looks uncomfortable. You can see she's sweating a little bit. And if the scene continued without that happening, you might pass it up. But it's a nice little, when you rewatch it and you see those little things that, like you said, they're slowly building there. And, I appreciate that attention to detail. And I can really feel what she's going through there, especially when you rewatch it, how you see it slowly starting to hit her. And I would say probably 60 seconds or so before she fully flips out. Actually, it's probably right about here. The sounds, now you were kind of in her head. The sounds in the room are starting to be a little muffled, almost like she's hearing it through tubes attached to her ears.
I found it interesting. There is a sound that comes up that it's a natural sound of the room. It's the sound of the hairdryer.
Yeah,
that I think was working on Sally Field. Yeah, it starts to creep up, and it sounds eerie, even though you know what it is.
Yeah, but it really makes you feel what she's going through.
Exactly.
Right now. You really feel it. It was really well done, and not over the top. It feels real.
It feels very real.
And of course, I mean, what do you say about Sally Field? I mean, she's mom. She's everybody's mother. That's exactly what you would imagine. You believe that she is Shelby's mother. I don't feel like she is acting the part. I mean, this is what any mother would do in this situation. She's her tone, a mother, her attitude,
her
everything,
her word and her actions.
That's what makes this movie so endearing to people, because these people feel so real. And moments like this, could definitely be overplayed or whatever in a different movie. But, she owns in this movie.
I like the fact it's interesting that the younger women are more frantic, and Sally Field and, I'm sorry, what's the other actress's name?
Olympia Dukakis.
Yeah, Olympia Dukakis are both, even though Sally Field is the mother, but they're both motherly towards her.
Yes.
Well, they probably, watched Shelby grow up.
Yeah, sure, but it's just, it's their age. You could see how they're reacting differently. Even though Truvy knows about this condition, she is, obviously, her being frantic is being shown on the surface more, and she's less in control of her emotion, the situation, than the other two.
Now, I've seen this movie more times than I can count, but although I'm aware of the fact that Weezer is not in this scene, not until right now did I realize, probably why she is not in this scene. And that because she's pretty much in every other part. But from a writing point of view, if you had put her in this scene, she would have reacted like Truvy and like Olympia Dukakis.
Yeah, you don't want that from her character.
You don't want to see her be that tender so quickly.
Not yet.
We need to learn to love her in a different way.
Yeah, well, she's comic relief, and she wouldn't have worked in this scene.
No, I mean, not only is she comic relief, but you wouldn't believe her curmudgeon nature if at this point, 27 minutes into the movie, if you see her react so compassionately. Just one of those things, being analytical, you realize, hey, that she is not in here, and this is probably why.
A subtle support here is the support that Olympia Dukakis and Dolly Parton have, not only toward Shelby, but toward Malin.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the first person to respond to Malin, to the situation when the father tells everybody that Shelby is pregnant later in the film, the first person to respond to Malin and come to her side is, of course, Shirley MacLaine.
Oh, sure. She, in that particular scene, she's just far removed enough to where she can kind of sit back and really look at their faces in a way that maybe the other girls wouldn't be. Again, it's keeping the character of Weezer just pulled back enough at just the right points to allow her a moment like that.
In the movie, the boys are clearly younger than their sister. In reality, it was the reverse.
In the play?
In reality.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess they could have made them older, but at that point, I think you'd be questioning why they're still at home.
Exactly.
So I guess, on film and even on stage, I see why they would need to make them younger.
We're talking over one of the best lines.
Well, before I forget it too, we should, to anyone, I'm sure anyone who knows the movie's fully aware that this movie takes place only at
holidays. Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. Right now, as we're seeing them with the eggs in the car, it's Easter.
It begins
and it takes place
over.
It begins and ends with Easter. I want to say over a 2 or 3 year period.
Yes.
And
actually, more than half the movie is the same day.
Well, yeah, we're still on day one, and we're 30 minutes into the movie.
Yes.
Yeah, and the use of holidays, for transitioning in time, that's nothing new, but this movie does it well, and it doesn't feel like we're being batted in the head with it either.
No, it doesn't. Sometimes it's even subtle, but it's another point of realism, because that is when people tend to be drawn together, and there's no reason to assume that these women spend every day with each other, nor that they just get together on holidays, but it's just events when they're all pulled together.
Shirley had to play a woman who was older than she was. She wore a gray wig, no makeup for this part.
Well, there's the wig. Every single woman in this movie, and I do mean every single one, has headlined their own movie. Has starred in a movie, multiple movies, entirely by themselves. They've been the box office draw. There is no one single star of this movie. It's a fully supporting cast. And, a testament to whoever was responsible for casting this, that every person in this, primarily the women, are such strong actresses. And you would have to assume went into this fully willing to say, okay, I'm not the star of this. I'm one of many supporting actors in this movie. It's an ensemble. And
I think you can really give that credit to Herbert Ross, who really viewed all of these women as equal. Did not.
Well, it certainly comes off that way.
Yes, it does. And if you really watch, you'll see Julia Roberts become more and more confident as the movie goes on. You can see she's just growing more comfortable, because these were huge actresses to be up against for your first really big part.
Mm-hmm.
And just,
well, it takes actors of a certain caliber to be able to infuse a character with so much life when they are not on screen, every moment. And, to all of their credit, they do that. You could not take, and this part is a testament to the writing, you could not take any one of these women's dialogue and switch it and give it to another character. It wouldn't work.
No, it wouldn't.
The writing was so perfect in that sense, as was the performances, because you don't confuse Weezer with, what is Olympia Dukakis' character's name? What? Help me out.
Oh, of course, because you've asked, we've all gone blank.
Well, you don't confuse those. They're somewhat similar in appearance, somewhat. And you never for a second confuse their characters. They're so different. And they're not caricatures either. A lot of times in ensembles like this, you'll tend to get caricatures of people. You'll get... what's the other word I'm looking for? just two-dimensional cliches. And none of these women feel like cliches at all.
Clary,
yeah. You know, this movie has so many different relationships going on. It's just so good. I mean, we talked a little bit before about the dynamic between Weezer and the dad there. But then, of course, Weezer has her own interactions with Clary. The way that she deals with Malin is different. She's respectful of Malin. She doesn't really give Malin a hard time, not too much. You know, the way she does some of the other girls. There's a whole different dynamic there. Truvy, I guess you could say, is kind of motherly with Shelby, but she feels a little more equal to everyone else. It's just interesting, the interrelationships between all the characters. The way again, a lot of movies will do this. The way one character acts with one person is the way that character will act with everybody. But that's not the case with this movie. And that gives it, more and more life.
Shirley MacLaine has the best facial expressions. She doesn't have to say a word.
Josh talked a little earlier about the fact that we were introduced to this movie when we were young. And I can certainly attest to that. And something, because I resisted watching it for so long, because, it was a quote unquote chick flick or whatever. I had always thought that the wedding was the end of the movie. I had no idea that there was an hour and a half after this. But because it was so frenetic and so much going on, it just kind of, to me as a kid, it had that feel of, this, and of course most movies end with the wedding. They usually don't start with it. And it's just a little personal story there. I always thought this was the end of the movie until I sat down to watch it.
Well, it was also just being able to admit that you enjoy it, because I think for a while, our mother would watch it over and over and over again, and we would get so used to seeing it, but we would find ourselves enjoying it. At least I did, and I wouldn't want to admit it to myself or to anybody else that, this movie's actually pretty good, but blast it, I don't want to like it, And, only, like I said, when I got older and was I able to appreciate it.
Having Olympia Dukakis help in the wedding is a very subtle way of showing how really connected these ladies are, as Shirley MacLaine gets growled at.
As you mentioned Shirley MacLaine, it reminded me in that moment when you mentioned her facial expressions. And when an actress has that kind of X factor, actress, they can elevate above the material, even though it's not that good. I'm not saying the material in this movie is great, but for instance, a movie like Guarding Tess, where she stars, is not that great of a movie. It's okay, but it's made watchable by the actors in it and the characters they play, because they bring such a gumption, if you want to call it, to the proceedings. Her and Nick Cage, make that movie enjoyable too. If there were lesser actors in there, the movie probably wouldn't really be worth watching. But also, before I forget, I keep forgetting, every time I see it, it's Dylan McDermott, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Every time I see him on screen, I have this instinctual reaction to him, and it's because of you, Mother. Because whenever we would watch this, you would tell me over and over again, well, and I would feel the same, how
unlikable he is.
Yeah, how much I cannot stand this guy, especially that line right there. Cost me $60 to rent this sucker. Even as a young kid, I'm like, this guy is a freaking idiot. I hate this guy. He's, and shave, for Christ's sake. It's your wedding day. It's the way his character's drawn, I never liked him. And I don't know if I'm supposed to feel that way, if I'm supposed to hate him, because I've never liked him. He's just this dude.
I don't. Oh, you know what? Before we get out of this, in the background, do you see the guy in the hat, in the gray hat on the right? Well, you may not be able to see him, but he's kind of wearing like a Civil War hat, a Southern style Civil War hat. That caught my attention earlier, and I found that interesting. But Anyway, sorry to jump topic. I totally get what you're saying about Jackson, and I think, pretty sure he was painted that way on purpose.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if you're supposed to outright hate
Janine
him.
Turner, by the way.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And also, in that scene when he's introduced, in the beginning of the movie, when he crawls in through the window, they have, he and Julie Roberts have that. Here's a good character introduction. Here has that dialogue between the two of them, and he says, or she says, and I am, I am not stupid.
There's a break in continuity here too.
You mean a continuity error?
Yes.
It's with the cherry Coke, isn't it?
Yes.
She says, "I'm not stupid," and I always hear it in my head whenever she says that. I hear your voice, Mom. You'll say, "Oh, yes, you are," because you never liked the character of Shelby. You felt that she acted very wrong in pursuing a child, and she should have listened to her mother, and she didn't. She didn't take the advice and the ideals of her mother to heart. And every time she says that, I always hear in the back of my head, "Oh, yes, you are." Calories. Sorry, I'm trying not to quote it. It's really hard, especially with the subtitles on.
Well, they make reference, I think, in this scene to the fact. Oh no, it was previously. It was in the when they're getting ready. They talk about how Jackson's a lawyer and how Louisiana lawyers do well, whether they want to or not. I seem to get the impression that he probably is just out of law school. So he's still relatively young, and
you can both tell. I mean, they're both young and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. You can tell.
Yeah, sure, but Shelby's probably a couple of years younger than him. So for her to be going against what her mother says, I mean, that's perfectly normal given her age. And there he is. There's that guy with that Civil War hat.
And there is Robert Harling. That's the writer.
Oh,
the minister.
Didn't know that.
Yes.
This was this armadillo cake? Was this based on any kind of reality?
Yes, he actually had. This was the groom's cake. One of the greatest lines coming up.
And Tom Skerritt just nailed that line.
Another great line. Rather walk on my lips than to criticize anybody. Again, all these people are local people, knew the family.
Mm-hmm.
Said I was 14. You were brought up right. The clothes, by the way, were purchased at a discount store. So it was really true to the area.
Mm-hmm.
It was very important to Herbert Ross that they be authentic in every aspect of the movie. Of course, this lady becomes, the aunt, becomes so important later.
Mm-hmm.
And although at this point they don't have too much respect for her, by the end of the movie, she's an integral part of all of their lives and of the little boy's life as well.
Well, I think a lot of it goes unsaid, but yeah, I mean, she's the one that's caring for the baby when Shelby's in the hospital and everything.
Yes.
That tells you how close she is. This scene here, this dancing scene, is kind of one of the only bits of the movie I think goes on just a tad too long. Just the dancing stuff, because it cuts away from the primaries, and especially when they really get into the showcase of the dancing here in a minute. Who is that guy? It just kind of just takes me out of it just for a little bit. And when I sit down and watch the movie, this stuff right here, it's not that it's not cool to watch and everything, but to me it just goes on just a hair too long and takes me out of the movie just a little bit.
I agree.
And whenever I watch the movie actively, I kind of just want it to move on.
These were actually partners in real life.
I'm sure. You can tell.
He died, I'm not sure how many years ago, but died of AIDS.
This guy, the dancer?
Yes.
How do you know that? Was that in the commentary?
No, I believe I read it.
Oh, okay.
This is a very poignant scene. Just speaks volumes about the depth of their relationship. And here's where she says the classic lines, "I'm not stupid."
You know,
she's not stupid. She's just young.
Yeah. Well, I like this this setup
She's not
here.
doing anything different than most people would do at her age, you know?
Oh, no.
She's too young to see kind of how mismatched she and Jackson really are. And it doesn't take her long to figure it out. I mean, let's see,
is.
Yeah.
We're
not stupid.
Yeah,
You know, I like this subtle setup here in the background. You'll notice.
Look at her face.
You'll notice her life is kind of spread out on that wall.
Yes.
Sure.
You saw pictures of her like in high school when she was younger, and you saw a picture of Jackson. I thought that was a very kind of subtle, interesting touch. You see this transition happening literally before your eyes, in her life literally before your eyes.
See, look,
as
there's the Confederate uniform again.
Really?
I never noticed that before. Look at those guys.
I've often wondered if this is because she's buried in the pink suit with the cherries on the lapel, and I've wondered if that's the same suit that she was buried in.
Probably. Now that you mention it. Yeah.
This Sally Field's acting here is tremendous. As she watches her daughter drive away.
Mm-hmm.
And she's doing what she's supposed to do, putting on a good show.
Yeah, it's all in the eyes right there. You can see it.
Right there. Right there.
Well, you know, she says it when she says it to Jackson at the wedding, you know. I'm going to paraphrase it, but, you know, when you're young, you think everything's going to work out fine, and maybe it will, but, you know, just promise me you'll take a few minutes before you do anything rash about family and things like that. You know, I'm sure, like any mother, any parent, you know, she hopes that it will work out because maybe it will. But, you know, she knows her daughter, and she's not, you know, she can kind of see who Jackson is. Not that he's a bad guy. He's just, you know, he's just Jackson. And, you know, she thinks Shelby could do better as far as just a, you know, better emotional match, that sort of thing. And, you know, like I said, that's life. You know, that's what makes it feel so real. You know, it's not that he's not an evil guy. He's just a guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this guy gets
Sammy here.
Yeah, this I like this character actor. He gets around.
He gets, yeah, he's been around.
As he's a character actor. I don't remember his name, but you know, I've seen him in
yeah, I know
stuff.
him, for example, from Lord of Illusions.
Yeah, he was in Virtuosity. I remember him from a small movie called Chicago Cab. Yeah, I've been in lots of things. He's got a recognizable face.
Another great line, the older you get, the uglier you get.
Oh, yeah. This
coming up.
This movie just tosses those kinds of one-liners out like they're free, and that they're all priceless.
There it is.
There you go.
And first transition there, we go from the wedding to Christmas.
Yeah, look, and we're 47 minutes. We were on the same
Yes.
day for 47 minutes.
Yes.
Now, this is what I was going to say earlier. You know, that was Easter. So here we are, 6-7 months later? When is Easter? August? September?
March or April.
Yeah, whatever. So about half a year later. And it's...
Janine Turner again.
Again, yeah. It's in this section, this you know, Christmas section of the movie that Shelby's going to come to Malin and tell her that she's pregnant, and you know, she makes that little reference of how she thinks it'll help a lot. So, you know, less than a year, half a year into their marriage, Shelby knows, she's grown up a lot. She knows that things are not going so great. And of course, that's exactly what Malin was afraid was going to happen. And of course, she makes a decision to, keep the baby, go with the pregnancy that ultimately, we know how that ends. But
yeah, look at Daryl Hannah here. She's kind of taking
on Truvy Jr.
Yeah, she's taking on the like of Truvy. That's what I was about to mention. But she's also gained some confidence, as you can see.
Oh yeah, yeah. Her character definitely has an arc.
She's starting to fit into the groove of things here.
Sure.
All her tattoos are spelled correctly.
You keep mentioning that actress, Janine Turner.
Yeah, the one from Northern Exposure.
Northern Exposure.
That's who. Okay, that's where I know her. I couldn't place her. She looks so different with that hair. Because in Northern Exposure it was short. As is she was in Cliffhanger. She had the same haircut. So that's why I couldn't place her. Okay.
This festival actually takes place in this city, Natchitoches, where it's being filmed. They purchased all of this, all of the scenery that they actually used during the festival.
I like the timing on that shot. It goes on just a little bit too long, just long enough you think they're going to switch angles, Because we're watching their backs as they go away. Do you think they're going to switch? But no, they catch us with that, that contact, her losing her contact, that little bit, I think it was good staging, good cutting. Yeah, and there we go. That little nugget of information we just got. Now she owns a radio station.
Now it's just paid off.
Yeah, so they threaded it into the dialogue without us even really realizing it. Now we okay, she's got things have this character's grown up a little bit. Well, not grown up, but she's moved on. Things have happened in her life too.
Sure.
Now we get this character insight as to why Spud is Spud. He did such a wonderful job of this very understated character.
Just at this very moment, I was thinking to myself, who else could play this part? And the way this character is portrayed, if they were to remake this movie today, this is exactly the kind of part that Chris Cooper would be.
I was about to say, Chris Cooper would be great in this role.
To where you almost don't like him, but then he'll give you something towards the end that makes you go, oh, all right, that's who you are. And that moment I'm referring to is at the end when they're about to go to Shelby's funeral and he actually opens up and you get a sense of, that he's not a bad guy at all. He just doesn't know how to express himself. And here he's akin to the dude in A Big Lebowski. He's seems to be one of the laziest guys on the planet. But, we don't know his whole story. We don't need to, but we certainly get enough of Spud towards the end to kind of make it all come together. And you end up liking him.
Is it grape or aubergine?
Shut up. Definitely a thankless role this guy had to play.
Another character actor.
But someone had to be the straight man here, so.
Some very good backsides here.
I'll take your word for that. And we don't really hear anything about this radio station thing after this, do we?
I don't believe so, no.
This is pretty much it. Now, this is the scene I was talking about where, she's going to say, it'll help things a lot, that sort of thing. She's already got it, but she's going to, she already knows that they're in trouble, but that is Shelby knows, but, she's going to try and hold it together. But she's so optimistic still that she can't fathom that this could actually have such a devastating effect on her body. And especially when Sally Field blows up here and launches into her tirade about, when you go to the doctor, does he listen? I know you don't. Does he? Mm-hmm. That whole bit. Just mother. That's a mother talking. I can imagine being yelled at or, lectured in much a similar way. I mean, that's just Sally Field.
As a mother, I can only imagine what it must have been like to watch your child doing something that and later it's confirmed, could end her life.
Well, yeah, I mean, she doesn't know that it will, but she knows that it's certainly extremely risky for her to conceive. But, I think Shelby's character here does a good job of, and without laying it on too thick, of kind of letting you understand that it's not a matter of rebellion here or anything. And she, we're getting a sense of their history here that, at least Shelby feels like, we've always listened to you. We always do what we're told. And, you're the mama hen, but she is an adult now, and right or wrong, these are her decisions. And she's telling Sally Field, you've just got to step back and let me make my mistakes if they're gonna be mistakes. And that's a growing pain that anyone of that age goes through.
I think it also speaks to the fact that she has lived a compromised life. She states when they're in the bedroom in a few minutes, she states that she would rather have a few minutes of wonderful than a lifetime of nothing at all.
Of nothing special.
Yeah. And
definitely.
That really speaks to her motivation.
Mm-hmm. And actually
that you can understand.
Yeah, and actually that line is even sort of not referenced, but at the funeral scene when the mom says, I could jog the Texas and back, but my daughter never could. Right. It really is a kind of a subtle distinction of the fact that these two characters, like you said, have lived totally different lives. Malin is, she's a trooper and her body allows her to be, but Shelby can't. Even if she wants to, she can't. And so this is her chance to kind of do something, and she's not going to let what the doctors say stop her. And, sure. As the parent, you can understand how heartbreaking that is because she knows just how risky it is. There's no guarantee that it's going to end badly, but, she knows her daughter and she knows these things probably will happen.
The impression,
but she still wants her mom's approval here.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Approval. That's the impression this scene gives me, is that kind of overall feeling of the dynamic between, say, fathers and sons or mothers and daughters, is that you're always their child. You never really grow up in their eyes, and you're always going to be little to them. You're always going to be their child. And like you said, approval, you can tell, there's obviously a strong bond between the two of them, but like any child, they want their parents' approval. And she desperately
in this
wants
scene,
that.
She's not asking for it, but
she wants it. She really wants it. She knows that Sally Field will not agree with her, but she wants her to say that it's okay. That's what she wants.
She needs for her to say okay.
She won't feel okay unless she says it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the scene in the beauty shop when she messes up her hair. The first thing she does when she kind of snaps back to is she looks to her mom.
Oh, Mama,
and she's
I'm
like,
sorry.
Oh, Mom.
Yeah.
She, this business of approval with Shelby kind of is a thread throughout the entire movie. And, ultimately Malin does kind of fall in line and continues to be the supporting mother, in as far as giving her kidney, and supporting her, Shelby's decision as best she can. Didn't work out, but that was her way of trying to support it.
Do you think it was just her wanting to improve her relationship with Jackson here that made her so wanting to have a child, or was it more in part of just her being young and brash that she felt that she really wanted a child herself?
I think it was a little bit of both. I think, she was young. She's out on her own. I mean, clearly, as you pointed out, with all the things on her wall in her bedroom, she's only just left that house and started on her own. And becoming a parent is a huge step in defining yourself as an adult. And Shelby, as a character, has certainly...
You see the desperation here.
Oh, yeah, look at that. It's on her face. She just wants to step out and be on her own. I don't think the pregnancy was planned or anything, but I think probably, the character, when she got the news, her first thought was probably, oh, my mother's going to kill me. And look at that.
Yeah, look at that heartbreak. I mean, she's there.
She knows she's not stupid. She knows that this is a risk.
She's out there with,
But she's hoping she can get through it if her mother supports it. Yeah, because Jackson probably is oblivious.
Yeah, she's on her knees practically. Please, I can't do this without you.
Exactly.
And Sally Field just walks away, and you can see the heartbreak on her face.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, her mother's her anchor, and in a way that Jackson is not. I don't mean to completely belittle the character of Jackson. I mean, when he, comes across Shelby at the, towards the end when she's, fallen unconscious and everything, I do feel, in the tone of his voice and everything that he does genuinely care for this girl. He's just probably way too focused on himself. And these are things that I believe Shelby, the character, is aware of. So when you say, when you ask, is she doing this for Jackson or for herself? I think it's for both. When she probably got the news, she, first thought, oh my gosh, this is great, but it's kind of not good. It's kind of scary. She's probably got her mom's voice in her head. And then she's looking at Jackson thinking, maybe this is what we need. Maybe this will be our glue. And the Jackson stuff probably becomes her her rationalization for making it okay. But then, of course, she's got her own personal stuff. Like I said, becoming a mother, making herself independent and appearing independent. So a lot of things going on in that decision. I like how Sammy discreetly kind of gets out of there. He knows that's not a place for him.
Remind me again. I've forgotten. What's the deal with the dog? Why is she carrying around a Saint Bernard?
Well, it's her dog. Can't leave a dog like that at home. All day?
Was there a particular reason why she has this very large dog, or I can't remember.
I don't know if the movie says it, but if I had to apply some logic to it, the character lives on her own, and she probably feels a certain sense of safety having a big honking dog like that at her door.
She loves this dog as if he's her child as well.
Of course, because as she says here, she proceeded to produce
this is
so many of the most ungrateful children the world has ever seen. Here we go.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
And she has more money than God. And of course, that line leads later.
Of course.
Robert Harling was talking about his sister and how when things would be at their darkest, she would turn it around and do something so funny. And you see him consistently when things get ratcheted up, the tension, like between the mother and the daughter there. They immediately go to the berserk elves. And he said that was one of his sister's best qualities, was she could take anything and turn it around and make people laugh. And of course, that's what he's done to perfection with his writing. They're carved out of cream cheese.
There's Janine again.
There's Janine again. And BB
Looking great.
Bish from Star Trek.
2.
Yep. Can't say anything nice about anybody. Come sit by me. Oh, here it is.
Owen
Jenkins.
Opened the can of worms for you. Remember me? An understatement if ever there was one.
I got my V8 on the carpet.
Local choir singing here from Natchitoches. I believe at one point in this, we're going to see the lady whose character Weezer was based on and whose house is, this is her house.
Well, I hope I don't miss her. I want to see her.
Now you see this deep connection between Weezer and Malin.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a clue as this, like I said, she treats Malin differently.
Yes.
Look at her. She's just looking at her. I never get the feeling that she,
The lady with the silver hair.
right there in the middle. That
Yes.
you missed? Oh, okay. Yeah, see, she was already sitting there with her.
Yes.
It's kind of those kinds of things are just nice little layers that they give the character of Weezer to where she's, you're slowly as the audience starting to understand that she's not, just some two-dimensional, curmudgeon girl next door. She's quite a bit deeper than that, and that she really does know these women, and has genuine affection for them. But there she goes. She's
Yes.
doing the right thing. She's
Right.
playing along.
That which does not kill us.
She knows it was the moment to do that.
Yes. This is such a perfect example of what women do with the hands.
I would hate to hear otherwise, but I have to imagine that all of them got along famously.
They
because
did.
You don't for a second think they don't.
They did.
Tom Skerritt also kind of plays your classic dad character. He's kind of an everyman dad, just slightly oblivious to what's going on,
Yes.
really. But at the same time, also very real, especially towards the end when she's in the coma. He completely shuts down.
Reminiscent
I
of.
bet dollars to pesos that's really that kid's mother whose lap he's sitting on, because we don't see her face.
I have often wondered.
Also, and if you notice, I don't think that was Julia Roberts, because look at how her hair is pulled up in the back there. You can see it in that previous shot.
Couldn't.
There's no hair.
There's no hair.
So either that was Julia Roberts and it was out of sequence and she had already had the haircut, or that.
Well, no,
that
she
was
didn't have her hair cut. That
But
was
look at the body type. That was not Julia Roberts.
No.
That was the kid's mother.
I was hoping when I listened to the commentary that the director would tell us who that person was. And I love this here where she says he's muddy. Perfect description. Did you notice that was mayonnaise she was putting on her hair?
I didn't.
That was a jar of mayonnaise that she was literally painting. And that is an old Southern tradition.
Also in the background there, we've got Annelle, who's got her glasses back on.
Right.
And, of course, her hair is toned back down. Now, is that a wig on Julia Roberts?
Yes,
Did
it
she
is.
really cut her hair?
No, that was a wig.
Okay.
Very subtle, where you see Sally Field parenting. Not grandparenting, but parenting.
Well, I mean, yeah, you can tell that's a wig now.
Well, now, yes.
Well, she's got so much hair. I mean, it's a very poofy wig.
She actually was nominated for an Academy Award for this.
Who, Julia Roberts?
Yes, she was. Best Supporting Actress.
Wow. I don't think she necessarily deserves it. I don't know if she won.
She was nominated.
She's perfectly, fine in this movie. I think if anyone deserved it, it was Sally Field.
Yes.
But
hear this.
But really, I think any one of them could have.
She's still
deserved
looking
a
to her
nomination.
mother for approval.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And you see,
as long as her mom's, and she does, mom gives her the yeah.
Yes,
and
there
she's
she
okay.
is. There it is. I love
There
it.
it is. Mm-hmm.
And then she's
Yeah.
okay.
Here it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's like,
And
okay.
Dolly
Okay,
in
Mom.
the background going, phew. Nobody
Oh, I know.
cries
Oh, she
alone
felt
in my
so bad.
presence. Yeah.
Yeah, she felt so horrible.
Then, of course, you have the comic relief that Robert is so good at doing when you come in. Weezer comes in and, oh, Shelby, your hair is so short.
Oh, sure. There's an L praying. Look at it. She's irritated with it. But her character gets an arc too, Annelle. She,
Yes.
here she's definitely the converted at this point. But by the end of the movie, I feel she's kind of found a balance between faith and not being so subservient to it.
Yes.
I do not like that hair on her at all.
Robert Harling has women down to a
Certainly
T.
seems like it. Met people.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I know I already said it, but the fact that this was written by a man just blows my mind. I mean, good writing is good writing. I mean, I guess if you're a good writer, you can do it, but there is a certain way that women speak to each other that men do not.
Yes.
That I would find difficult to convey, in an honest way. I would have liked to have heard more about the process of the writing of the stage play and how it had to have developed while on the stage, and maybe the actors helped tweak the dialogue to give it a more real feel. For all we know, I would like to know.
I have a little bit of background about that.
Well, let's hear it.
Robert Harling was devastated by his sister's death and really struggled to get over it. And at the time was trying to become an actor, was in New York, and was staying with some friends. And they convinced him that he was a writer. He had dabbled in writing. And they said, you need to write about this. And so he thought about it. And first it was too painful, but eventually he started writing and it just morphed into what became the play. He realized he had to tell her story, that it was almost his destiny to do that, and that it was one of the greatest things he could give to his sister was to tell her story.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what it grew out of. And then led to Ray Stark seeing the play, going to Herbert Ross seeing the tremendous writing. And then him scripting, because the entire play takes place in the beauty parlor. So all the other scenes he wrote were additional to the original story.
So in the play, the entire thing takes place in the beauty shop.
Yes.
Not in the Eatonton house at all.
No. The wedding, everything, and was additional.
Just happened off stage in the play?
Yes.
Well. That makes sense.
One of the great lines coming up. Shelby's driving nails up her arms.
Oh, that already passed, yeah.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right.
But, look at Weezer here. She's putting it together.
Oh, yes.
She knows this isn't a great thing, and she's not pulling punches about it. She's concerned. This is her extended family. She's not going to say it, but, these women are her family. And, Shelby's probably the closest thing to a daughter she'd ever have, and, no doubt saw her grow up. I mean, obviously they live next door to each other, so... we've seen her slowly kind of observing and seeing the risk factor involved in this decision. See, everyone's here shocked, but she got the close up. She got the her reaction was different than everyone else's. I find that interesting.
Yes.
I think it means more coming from her character.
Yes, it does.
Maybe that's why they chose to do it that way.
And then, of course, the pork and beans.
Look at this. Also she feels bad.
Yes, she does. She's confessing.
Mm-hmm. Look at her play with that cart. She's such a character.
Makes me want a Twinkie.
Yeah, as a kid, I always thought it was the most fascinating thing in the world that she was eating the Twinkies before she bought them. I was like, is that okay? Can you do that in a store?
It's grazing.
4th of July?
Yeah.
So we're transitioning another
Right.
holiday.
So yeah, we're, I guess it's 2
Very
years
subtle
that this takes
transition.
place in, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, because this is a year. No,
Well,
it's
the
it's
child,
gotta
the
it's gotta
child
be
is
3
a year,
years.
so
Yeah.
at this point it's 2 years.
Okay, yeah. So the movie itself takes place in about 3 years.
Yes.
Let's say.
Yes.
Sammy Wayne DeSoto. You're in trouble when all three of your names are used.
It's not, it was nice to see Sammy stick up for himself, even if it was in a Sammy way. She's definitely got a backbone. You may not like her entirely like her motives, but at least she's stepping up for what she believes in. Poor Sammy.
A line my husband uses on me quite frequently.
That's probably the line I quote the most. The socket wrench. Yeah, it's kind of cute. She's sitting out there just they're talking as he's working. He's probably not even really listening, but
Well, I think it's good, because not every relationship in this movie is, solely about the dynamics between all the women.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Everyone has a different dynamic.
Well,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. They show this is she's married. She has a life outside of her friends.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
This is she relates differently to her husband than to them.
And you see here, the father is taken out of the buffoon caricature.
Yeah, and you believe it.
Oh yes.
This is scary for him. His two girls are going under the knife here tomorrow, and he knows how serious this is.
And to him, there's nothing funny about it.
No.
When everything else prior to this has been.
Although he makes it a point never to deal with his wife,
yes.
He certainly doesn't want to lose her.
Yes.
He's pissed.
Well, yeah, they're trying to make light of the situation to avoid having to actually deal with it, and you can sense that the two brothers, would be okay in doing that and not really realize the situation, but you can obviously tell that Shelby and her mother are trying to avoid thinking about it because they know how serious it is.
Yeah.
Another great line coming up. Right there.
That scene, just through the fact that physically what's happening, she's picking her up. We know that Truvy is still kind of watching over Annelle, even a little way. She may not be mentoring her in quite the same way as when she first started there, but she's definitely part of the group. I mean, they haven't ostracized her because of the whole faith overload that she's
Not
on.
at all. Adorable character actor there. Shut up.
That
this is a group of people you just want to hang out with. If these were real people, I'd be like, sit me with them. I want to be a part of that discussion. Her, I think it was a brave choice on her part. Most of the outfits Shirley MacLaine wears in this movie are not attractive.
No.
And, it's a testament to her, willingness as an actress to do this, because she just totally immerses herself in this part. I mean, she's played a variety of different people in different movies, and she is Weezer in this movie. She's also quite an attractive woman too.
Yes, she is.
And she certainly downplays that in this movie. If you see her, some of her earlier work, when she was like in her 20s and 30s, she's very good looking.
Yes.
And you almost
she's
wouldn't
a
believe these are the
dancer?
same. Oh yeah, you could believe that they're not the same person. She went through such a transformation to do this.
With the exception of the funeral where Dolly Parton is dressed all in black, she's definitely a character. Her dress is a character.
Mm.
Just the idea of smoking in a hospital nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
And that short scene shows how genuine her faith is.
Sure.
This is actually a doctor.
Looks good.
Looks real good.
Also a often quoted line.
Yes.
By myself, anyway.
I say it as well. He's still not relieved.
No, he's not.
Halloween.
Yeah, and we were just at 4th of July.
Yes.
So, yeah, we're almost half a year later. And, obviously Milan's had time to heal and whatnot.
Shelby's back at work. We find out right away.
Sure. Yeah, because it's at this, this holiday part of the, year, this part of the movie, this, section of time is, of course, where we're going to lose Shelby ultimately. And so, yeah, it takes about, close to, let's say, 6 months. Well, I guess it's more like 4, isn't it? For, the rejection to happen. I like that they didn't force Shelby into this scene. She's got her own life. She's off doing something else.
Right.
They could have shoehorned her in there, but they didn't. Didn't need to. This scene, being the hypochondriac that I am, just angers me because she right there.
She knows
something's wrong.
She
knows it.
She knows.
If she had just gone downstairs to the ER,
I know.
she probably would have lived. And it angers me as a viewer to see her just let that go. But she did, But she works in a hospital setting, for God's sake. She knows better.
Yes.
She should have gotten herself in. Even if she just went the next day to a doctor, she probably would have survived. But, no. That makes me mad. I have no idea how it all played out in reality, but, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm
There's
talking about
some
the movie.
interesting threads that we're seeing right now. Annelle putting the wax on Weezer's upper lip. Later, when they're getting ready when Dolly Parton and Sam Shepard are getting ready for the funeral, he's playing with that now hardened wax and asking what it's for.
Makes you pretty.
Makes you pretty. I'm remembering a line that Shelby said to her mother when they were having the confrontation over her pregnancy. And she said, when all is said and done, life goes on. And at the end of this movie, Sally Field's character says the same thing.
Who says that in the first place?
Shelby to her mother.
Where does
life
she say
goes
that?
on? When she's talking about that, the downside of her being pregnant, that there are problems, but life goes on.
Oh.
And she's the exact same line that Malin uses later.
Sure.
After she's lost her. Of course, a little bit of lightness before this tragedy. And of course, she lifts him up and why'd you do that?
It's hard to watch when you've, been sitting, through the whole movie, because you feel so very attached to all these characters and, this isn't going to end well. And, it's hard to see.
And they just play this long enough where the father is oblivious.
Well, but I like how he comes in here. He's like, hey, buddy, like I said, Jackson's not a bad guy. He's just, look at him. He's concerned. He's trying to figure out what's going on.
This walk speaks volumes.
I know. This is Mother 101 right here.
Well, it reminds me of walks I've taken.
Sure. I can imagine. See, there's Tom Skerritt. He's gone.
Yeah.
He's in a dark place right now.
Yes, he is.
Also, I should wait till the part comes up, but, I don't know how long in the context of the movie the bedside vigil here goes on for, but, you certainly get the sense that it's a while. And the scene when Tom Skerritt comes up behind her and, tries to say, you need to get out of here for a little bit, get some real food, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And she won't even look at him. She just pushes him away.
Yes.
And, again, it just feels so real. Just what if she wakes up and I'm not here?
Yes.
And it's...
a mother's greatest fear.
It's so utterly convincing. She knows the nurses by name. This is very much the kind of mother that the staff would probably be, tolerating because she won't leave and she wants to know everything that's going on, because that's what a mother does. Open your eyes.
She just wants her to argue with her.
Sure.
Susan's mother was a part of this, the filming. She watched it. She wanted to be there, and this was the only scene that she came to. And Herbert Ross took her aside and said, he was very concerned about her and what it would do, and Robert Harling joined him, and she looked at her son and she said no. And he said, "Why, Mom? Why? How can you watch this?" And she says, "Because I want to see her get up and walk away."
Yeah, I remember hearing that.
And that face.
Yeah, this is the part I'm talking about.
Yes. And clearly she's not groomed.
Yeah.
All of those superficial things that were so important are...
She looks beat.
She is, yeah.
I wonder
and
what she as an actress did. Maybe she let herself stay up, longer to
I
look
think
that
she
way.
probably cried and cried and cried and stayed up. You can't do that with makeup.
Well, you certainly get the feeling that the dad has been there. He's just maybe outside the room.
Yes.
It's too hard for him. He can't
handle it. The title speaks volumes. Still Magnolias.
I never understood. What does that mean?
Because you think of men as being strong. Women are the magnolias. They're steel.
I don't get
Beautiful. Seem delicate. But they're stronger than the men.
Is there such a thing called a steel magnolia?
No. It's obviously a contradiction in terms.
Oh, I don't get it. I mean, I get what you're saying, but I've never understood the
It
title
is
of
so
this movie.
descriptive of women. They are still magnolias.
Well, in fact, Sally Field says something akin to that.
Does she?
She
Yes.
says, "Drum left, he couldn't take it. Aren't men supposed to be, strong as steel?"
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I've never connected that line to the title.
Oh, yes.
See, he's out. He can't dig this. I like that we don't hear the beep.
Yes.
That would have just been too much. We don't need it.
Yeah. And then as it slowly pans down here to show Mom holding her daughter's hand, caressing it gently, holding on to every second that she has. And knowing what it's going to do to her heart when her daughter slips away.
Now she's in business mode here. Now
Yes, she is.
She needs to take charge, and everyone's just going to do whatever she says.
And of course, here the nail on his coffin is when she goes to get their son.
Charlotte, she literally takes off. Like, oh, she's at Aunt Vern's. Boom, she's gone. Here we go.
Yeah.
Boom, out of there.
And as a father, he doesn't dawn on him.
Well, it's different. It's just a different thing. Jack represents a different thing to Malin than he's going to Jackson. I mean, Jack is literally, the genetic pass down of her daughter.
What's left of her daughter.
Quite literally.
Yes.
Where it's so, Jack's not, of course he loves his kid, but it's different, in as far as, the Shelby connection. It's just different, grabbing Jack right now won't necessarily make it better for him, but it will make it better for her, because she's got to have that piece of her to hold on to. He knew Shelby for a couple of years. It's just different.
And I like the way that scene when she left the hospital, how we were brought into the scene. We were referring to, the women being steel magnolias, but all the men were sitting there in the darkness, in quiet and complete silence. And, obviously they've been sitting there for a while, and they were practically waiting for Sally Field to start the scene. I mean, she was, she's the only active one, the only one taking any kind of action. And I think it's particularly prescient considering the title and the reflections that this movie has in terms of men and women, the way they deal with certain situations,
This great scene that we talked about earlier, where you get a depth of character from Spud.
I do wonder, and I've wondered this a few times when I've seen this movie recently, just what the relationship, the dynamic will now be between Jackson and Malin, because Malin's not going anywhere, and Jackson would be a fool to think that he's going to take that kid away from arm's reach of Malin. And the movie's not about Jackson, so we don't need to see that. But the scene that the movie ends on in the the Easter scene, I think it would have been nice to have just a little bit of Jackson with Jack to show that maybe he's stepped it up a little bit, and that he's being more present. And to maybe just, didn't have to be a lot, but just a little bit of interaction between he and Malin to show that, that they're going to have a different kind of relationship. But, it's not like it hurts the movie not having it. But it just would have been a kind of a nice, full circle thing.
I like that little bond between fathers and
Yes.
sons there. The way he was carrying both of them almost.
Yes.
Without
Yeah.
and there's no words, there's no dialogue. It's a very nice touch.
Yeah.
he's trying to be strong for them, and they're walking with their heads down, and he's guiding them. It's very, very good touch.
He knows there's nothing he can do.
Yeah, he's thinking about it.
Yes.
He's like, no, let's just go. I'm going to paraphrase a story I heard about Harrison Ford. I think it was in a writer's documentary I saw, where for some sort of movie Ford was in, where he said he wrote all this great dialogue, the writer did, and to explain a certain emotion or feeling that Harrison Ford's character was feeling at the time, and the writer was explaining it to him, and they were talking about it, and ultimately that very nice discussion ended with Harrison Ford saying, "What you wrote was great and it's fantastic, but I'm not going to use a word of it. I'm going to do it all with my face." And I wish I knew what scene that he was talking about, but that scene with Tom Skerritt kind of makes me think about that. You could overwrite a scene like that and have him go up to Malin or whatever, but it wasn't necessary. You just need the look. Sometimes you can overwrite something, and you just need to act it.
Was Sally Field nominated for anything with this?
Should have been.
Not that I know of. She should have been.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking if she wasn't, this would have been the scene they played at the Oscars. Sort of similar to, the scene in that they played for Places in the Heart.
I don't care if it kills me. I don't care if it kills you.
They also really downplay Daryl Hannah's looks in this movie quite a bit. After Annelle's speech here, for just a moment, I start to not like Malin. Just for a minute, the way she reacts. I understand where she's coming from. She's hurt and everything. But she's kind of rude and kind of snappy. But she pulls it back. Annelle says something a little more. I can't remember what specifically, but she pulls it back, and then she kind of backs off.
Well, yeah, we realize what Daryl Hannah's trying to do. She's trying to offer her sympathies in the best way she knows how. And
we completely understand
and
Malin's reaction.
Oh, of course.
But it, like I said, it comes off as a little rude and inconsiderate of what Annelle is trying to say. But then, she kind of sweetens up a little bit.
Yeah, she just those words. I appreciate that. It's just not everyone would have the courage to come up and
it was just at first
talk to
like,
me.
I want her here with me.
Yes.
She starts getting kind of mean.
It's hard to come up and genuinely try to offer your sympathies to everyone. Without
in a moment like that,
and she realized, she's trying to reach out to me. I see that.
Yeah.
Here's where she talks about Still Magnolias, where the title comes from. Not specifically, but about men and women.
Mm-hmm. And again, it's these little moments. In a second here, we're going to see Weezer is the one that kind of starts to break down the moat right there.
Yeah.
And that makes me tear up when she reacts like that. Because it's her.
Yes.
And she
men are supposed to be made out of steel or something.
Mm-hmm. This whole movie's sprinkled with those little moments that Shirley MacLaine gets to do. They all should have been nominated for supporting actresses in this. Now, I never had the privilege of seeing this movie in a movie theater with, a bunch of people, women, more than likely, collectively sobbing at this moment.
Mm.
And I would have loved to have been part of that shared experience, especially, with what's coming up here. Just to, because when you see a movie in a movie theater, packed house and whatnot, the emotion in the room is, you can feel
Palpable. It is.
and especially in a scene like this, when, we're all feeling it, we all get it. And, but then to have this, genius moment of relief that's coming, I would just love to have experienced that with a crowd, for the first time. But, I challenge anyone to sit and watch this movie straight through with no interruptions and not be teary-eyed by the end of by this scene, I wonder how many times she had to do this.
30.
Really?
Yes. And the director said she did it full tilt every single time.
I don't doubt it. Probably for various angles. I can, I could see why.
Now here it comes.
Yeah. Yeah. I could imagine being one of those other actresses there if she's really going for it every time. How do you not just get sucked in?
Well, and you can see it on their faces.
Yeah, look at Dolly Parton. She's like, what in God's name is she doing? Yeah. I do kind of feel bad for Weezer here, though.
Yes,
I mean, the thing is that she would have willingly done that, if she knew that it would have helped.
Yes.
You know that of her character. But it still hurt. It's still, that still hurt her to, be the one that had to be sacrificed.
The scene here when they sit on the bench together.
Yeah, I know, when she falls off.
That was not scripted.
And she really gives her a good yank on the
She
head.
gives her a But they both agreed it needed more than the conversation. You are evil and you must be destroyed. You're too twisted for colored TV.
I do like that she explains what she did, though.
Yes.
And why.
And this was all improvised.
Yeah, they were really going for it there.
This is the scene where she says, "Life goes on."
Now,
just as Shelby said.
Oh yeah, sure, I remember that. Well, given that this whole movie took place, or the play took place entirely in the barbershop, how on earth did they end that play? I mean, they if it never took place at the gravesite.
I don't know.
How do you end this movie? I mean, you can't have that scene in the shop. It's not the same.
They-
it needs to be right there.
Well, they did end it with the conversations among the ladies in the beauty shop. But what I like is the movie begins in their home and ends in their home.
Well, the movie ends at the park.
That's true. I always think of this as really the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm. And Jackson is nowhere to be found. This, of course, is priceless.
Yes.
Scarrett gets it, you know. All we need is that little smirk.
Mm-hmm.
I would have loved to have seen that play. Now I'm really fascinated how they played these parts that don't take place in it. You know, obviously they'd be alluded to in the play, but you know, especially the funeral scene. How do you? Wow, I just can't imagine it without it.
I believe the line is coming up now.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it should be. Life goes on. Isn't that Jackson with...
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's nice to see, but, you know, I guess that whole bit I said before, you know, would have been nice, just a couple minutes of screen time, just to give us that.
Yes.
I would have liked to have seen it. I mean, he's there, he's holding his hand. That's good. That it's not Malin right there. You know, it's good that it's Jackson.
Yeah, I agree. It would have been nice to see his character kind of grow up a little bit because he's been so, you know, naive throughout the whole film and more or less really unlikable, you know?
Yeah. Oh, Sam.
You know, he suffers through that indignity of having to be the Easter Bunny, but you love him anyway, you know?
Well, you know, that's pretty much his life, and he better get used to it. So this is also a nice little bit for Spud here.
Mm-hmm.
Show that he really does care, you know. This is how he tries. This is what he does. They're over there. Over there. Also a line I quote often.
Yeah, he just plays that lovable loser so well and just nails it to a T.
Yeah. He's just not as bright as everybody else.
And they've all kind of adopted him here. Kind of become a surrogate mother.
Sure, he's just kind of...
Community child.
Yeah.
Clary. Owen's still supporting her.
Owen's kind of, Weezer's version of Sammy. You know,
Yes.
He's just along for the ride.
Yes.
Let's connect the bald spots. He needs that relationship. See? She turns right around and is very respectful to Milan. Always.
Always.
See, and he's right
Oh,
back
there's
to
Robert
his-
Harling again.
Yeah, I saw him at the funeral,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
This looks like a very nice setting. I'd like to be there.
That's the Nectish River. There he is again. Robert Harling.
When you said setting, it made me wonder. I've been thinking about this ever since we started this. When you mentioned that this whole play, the whole play took place inside the beauty parlor, it makes me wonder how how it would play out. Even though there are select locations in this movie, in this movie, it makes me wonder. Makes me very curious to want to see it. As you, Justin, mentioned it as well. Like how would they play this whole thing out in one?
Yeah.
I just assumed that, this being a very structured act, like, we go through Christmas and Halloween, that if this was on a stage, they would close the curtains and then open up and we'd be, oh, it's Christmas time, and they would start the new act. That's what I just assumed in my head. I had no idea that it was all in one place like that.
But I just can't imagine the funeral scene not happening. How do you not have that scene?
Well, you have the
There's
scene.
Jackson.
Yes.
He's part of the group. Subtle, but he's there.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, kind of like you said, it's very telling. Who did Jack run to?
Yes.
She went and got him. I like this little bit we get to go on. Come on, Sammy.
Yeah, I mean, underneath, but behind all the women's relationship, you can see the relationships that the men have forged.
Yeah, they've got their own little thing. You could have a whole other movie about the supporting cast.
Oh, I'm sure you could. This movie could have a twin, story.
Yeah.
A twin movie about
a parallel movie.
Yeah, about the relationships between the men.
Yeah, this is what happened when they were over there. So
yeah, call it flower hammers or something.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Yeah, and always
this is a nice way to go out. You leave the theater smiling.
Yes, you've had enough time to let your tears dry, and you've
you
blown
get a
your
couple
nose
laughs.
because you can't breathe. We didn't say anything about the music in this.
Yeah, I forget the name of the composer, but I know it's the same composer as Joe versus the Volcano.
Yes.
The music is extremely similar.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Oh, it's very similar. It's hard not to.
Yeah, if you play both movies and close your eyes, you could actually kind of forget which one you're listening to.
Yes.
It's that happens with composers. They tend to rip themselves off a little bit, even the best.
I remember as a kid, I would always wonder. I think I'd asked, a couple of times, well, what does she have, a boy or a girl? And you're like, oh, it doesn't matter. The baby's gonna be named Shelby no matter what. So I always think about that whenever the movie ends. And it's not particularly not subtle that it ends with a birth, new beginnings, All right, well we're closing out on the movie here. We just faded to black over the credits. Susan, anything you'd like to say to wrap this up? Your first time on podcast radio.
Mm-hmm. Well, I hope some of the things that we shared were interesting to you, and that you'll look at the film again and listen to all the fabulous lines that we probably talked over, and get to know these women and the men, their characters, and see if you can find any Weezers or Clarice or Melins in your life. And just think about what Steel Magnolias really means. Perfect title.
How about yourself, Justin? Anything you'd like to say before we close out?
Oh, well, it's, got the quote-unquote chit flick, label attached to it, but it's a fantastic movie, male or female. Anyone who hasn't seen it should really give it. Well,
yeah, there's real chick flicks out there, but I wouldn't call this one of them. I mean, I would say a more modern movie like 27 Dresses, that's a chick flick. This, no, it's universal. I think it can go either way. But I loved it then. I still love it now, and I'm glad we had a chance to talk over it today, and hope we talk some people into maybe liking it more. Well, I'm Josh, and Signing off. Thank you for listening. This has been the Solus Minions of Orthodoxy.
C'est la vie.
Adios. See you at the movies.